Hey guys, how's it going? It's your boy, Zach. Today, I watched a video by the infamous Lauren Southern. For those that don't know, she is a quote-unquote journalist that focuses on immigration, in particular immigration to Europe from North African and Middle Eastern countries. She regards this immigration as a phenomenon that will result in the Great Replacement, in which the European people and their culture will be wiped out by forced integration with cultures who are, in her point of view, incompatible. Now, Lauren says she's not a white supremacist, she's not a neo-Nazi, she's not a fascist. But for someone who is both not those things and strongly against them, she certainly uses a lot of alt-right talking points, and also seems to draw in a pretty openly fascist audience. But I'll get into that later. For now, let's go through this piece of journalism and see what we can make out of it. I'd also encourage you to go watch Lauren's video yourself if you haven't already, so you can make sure that I'm not going to be misrepresenting any of her views. Done? Okay, let's get into it then.
Nestled between the snowy mountaintops of the French Alps lies a small and idyllic town called Briançon. This is a place where you'll find the locals chopping wood, congregating at the local church, and living out their lives in peace and quiet. This is a little French town where not much has changed in over 1,000 years. But now, the peace is being shattered, and something suddenly seems different. North African and Middle Eastern migrants roam the streets, while up to 50 more cross the snowy mountains from Italy every day. It is a phenomenon locals have begun to call an invasion, and it is creating a huge division in the town.
So Lauren introduces her video by creating an image of what Briançon used to be like versus what it is becoming. And I actually decided to write out what she said regarding the sort of before and after mentality she approaches the subject with, because I think the language she uses is very telling about the reality of her journalistic integrity. So what I've done here is essentially recreated a GCSE English class by highlighting and colour coding words that I think are significant when analysing what Lauren's intentions are with this video. Now, before the migration, she uses words to describe the town such as idyllic, congregating, peace and quiet, which all sound quite communal and tranquil and just like everyone's living in harmony. And when the migrants come, suddenly she uses words like roam, as in roam the streets, and referring to what they're doing as an invasion and division. It scares people into thinking this is a group of people acting maliciously and destroying what used to be peaceful and innocent. So I mean, from this transcript alone, it's pretty easy to see what Lauren's agenda here is. And she puts that agenda into place with a very simple narrative theory, and I'm about to get pretty fucking nerdy with you guys, but just bear with me because it's actually pretty relevant. You might have heard of Todorov's narrative theory, and that is essentially a pretty mainstream form of narrative structure that's used in most conventional films, books, or general storytelling methods. You start out with an equilibrium, which is a state of utopia in which everyone lives in harmony and where there is practically no problems. In this case, it's Briançon. But then to keep the audience engaged, there has to be some sort of disruption of that equilibrium. Some evil force that threatens everything that was once good. I'm sure you can see what I'm getting at here. The migrants are the disruption. However, just because Lauren has appealed to this narrative structure, does that mean it's an accurate reflection of what's going on? Well, no, of course it's not. Migration is a complicated issue with both positive and negative implications, and Lauren essentially boils it down to everything was great and peaceful when it was just white French Europeans, but now everything's going wrong because of African and Middle Eastern people. And to prove to you guys that the way she presents this story is inaccurate, let me draw attention to the shots that Lauren uses alongside her comments, particularly the comment about migrants roaming the streets. And I find this shot confusing. There doesn't seem to be a lot of roaming going on. The majority of people in this shot appear to, one, be residents of this town and just getting on with their lives. But when you look into this shot, it's pretty clear Lauren wants you to focus on a specific person. This guy. That's why he's in the foreground of the shot. Okay? He is the best proof that Lauren has for roaming migrants, and that's a non-white man sitting down and presumably reading something. Roaming implies malicious intent. Does there seem to be anything malicious about this guy? I don't think so. Also, when she comments on the locals referring to the situation as an invasion, which by the way I would be more convinced by if she would actually interview or even directly quote a real resident of the town, which she never does throughout this video. But anyway, the shot that accompanies this statement is two black men standing. Now, I don't know if Lauren generally thinks this footage is in any way helping her point, but it seems pretty clear to me that the people presented in these clips are doing exactly what the locals are doing. Just living out their lives in peace and quiet, just like Lauren said. They're not monsters, they're not invaders, they're not trying to divide anyone, they just want to live their lives. And that's pretty clear when you actually look at the video footage that she's provided. Lauren went to this town, presumably for more than one day, to document this activism that was going on. If this town was really in the state that she says it's in, you think during that time she would have got some more convincing shots. Maybe she would have actually found some fairly large group of migrants roaming, but all I see is a normal town with a few non-white people in, who you cannot even determine whether they're migrants or not. And I really doubt Lauren talked to any of those people she filmed. I'm pretty sure she just turned on her camera and thought, ooh, there's a black guy, let's just film him. She says it's creating a huge division in the town. And then to back that up, she uses some pictures of what appears to be some sort of standoff between locals and police, maybe a protest of some kind, maybe some sort of march or demonstration. It's hard to tell, and there's no caption, there's no explanation for what's going on. These pictures that you're seeing here, they are protests in response to right-wing activists blocking the roads. The photos that Lauren uses to justify a claim that the migrants are creating a division is actually a protest in support of the migrants. So just to show you an extract of that quote, he says, "Spontaneously, we set out with a group of migrants for Bigot. Our aim was to express our shock at the failure of the French police to stop the fascists. They were able to carry out their protest on the pass for more than a day before the police pushed them out. That gave them more than enough time to get media attention, and thus succeed in their publicity stunt. We needed to do something in response." So the right-wing activists that opposed migration, what they caused the counter-protest. The protest was counteracting them, meaning that they started this conflict, they started this disruption. I'm already sick of it, and I've literally only got through a minute of this, but we're just gonna do it.
Our focus is often placed on metropolitan cities, urban centers where clashes of cultures have long been a well-documented issue. But mass migration and open borders are now starting to take their toll on remote communities.
Lauren says that migration is taking its toll on the smaller communities, but never actually gives any explanation on what she means by that. For example, if she said that an influx of migrants drives down wages and causes a temporary shortage of jobs in small areas and therefore has a short-term negative effect on the native population, I would say yes, that is true, and that is something we should discuss more, and it's something that we should focus on trying to resolve in a way that benefits everyone. But instead, she just implies that migrants are inherently a problem without giving any reason why, and I think this is what makes me wary of Lauren. Her ability to accept migrants as bad without justifications is a worrying trend that emboldens far-right rhetoric. This vacuum of reason is then inevitably filled with racism, xenophobia, and religious hatred from neo-Nazi and white supremacist movements. Now, Lauren may denounce them on the surface, but engaging with this narrative has ultimately led to the same effect as any fascist argument would. And she knows this. All you need to do is look at the comments on any of her videos, and I've actually picked some out just to prove my point. It's not immigration, it's an invasion. Shoot them. I would set death traps all over the place for the migrants. Migrants are like a virus. Zionist Jews did this. They are behind the false refugee migration invasion, bomb their Israel to punish these bastards. And there's another comment which has a diversity, enrichment, and humanity. They enclose all these words in 3 brackets on either side. or as they're also known as echoes. And if you don't know what these are, I'll let you research the origins of them, but let's just say the origins of them are extremely anti-Semitic, and anyone that uses them is pretty much saying they're a neo-Nazi, but trying to keep it discreet. Some people have sort of reclaimed it in order to take power away from the far right using it, but if people use it in this context, it's definitely supposed to be anti-Semitic, so watch out for that. Speaking of anti-Semitism, neo-Nazi far-right movements, this brings me on to the next part of the video.
With governments failing to intervene, the people of Europe are finding themselves forced to shoulder the responsibility. Generation Identity is a coalition of European youth from across the continent who are taking the future of their people into their own hands.
What is identitarianism? Well, it's essentially a rebranding of white nationalism. There's a lot of stigma behind white supremacism, white nationalism, and neo-Nazism, which I'd say is pretty justified stigma, but you know, don't let that fool you, man. If you hear identitarian, be wary.
Where activists from Generation Identity have launched their second Defend Europe mission.
And that first Defend Europe mission was where they got on a boat and tried to actually go into the Mediterranean to stop migrants coming in by boat and make them turn back and go back to Africa, which pretty much failed because they didn't achieve any of their aims, and I think they ended up getting arrested for piracy or something like that. But yeah, I mean, nice one. Hope that works. Hope it works out better the second time. I mean, it was actually a horrific idea because you're basically sending people on boats back who might be coming from war zones. I mean, their point was they're actually all economic migrants, but I mean, you don't know. Some of them might be economic migrants, some of them might be fleeing, because there are lots of people in the Mediterranean coming from Libya where there's a literal slave trade going on right now, and there's a lot of militias all fighting each other. There's no real government in place. People are going to be fleeing that country, and just because they're not all from there and they're not all refugees doesn't mean there aren't some people who are genuinely in danger, and by turning them back out of your own bigoted, ignorant views that you don't even have any way to justify, then that's just inhumane and cruel. I don't think anyone should be proud of that.
In an act of unparalleled organization and planning, this 150-strong team of activists has managed to build a blockade on the popular migrant crossing from Italy to France.
I don't think 150 people is unparalleled amount of organization. I've seen many organizations of activists that have had thousands of people involved in their projects and have got a lot more done than set up a temporary blockade.
To find out more about this peculiar crisis, I spoke to the head of Generation Identity Austria, Martin Zellner.
And basically she interviews Martin Zellner, and he basically just talks about like what they did, how they did it, and what effect it had with the media reporting on it, which is not really what I want to focus on, so I'm going to skip over that bit because I can't be asked with that. That's too long and too boring. I don't care. I'm here to talk about how Lauren's an idiot.
A convoy of Europe's right-wing activists. Once we reached the top of the mountain, I was immediately struck by the scale of the operation. With an entire fence, a 24-hour guard team, helicopters, planes, and a multi-vehicle escort, it was clear these guys took the threat seriously.
They mean business. They take the threat seriously. What's the threat? Are migrants the threat by them existing? By being migrants? Or are they posing a threat through their migration? And if so, what is it? It starts with the preposition of migrants are bad, they're going to destroy you. I'm not going to explain why, I'm just saying, believe me, they will, and here's what we're doing. What negative effects have migrants had on Bigot? Because she's got none to offer. I've done some research, and all I found is that the only disruption was caused by them creating this blockade, which triggered a counter-protest against them by the citizens of that area. Just to make this clear, what it seems has happened is some migrants have come into this town. These people have overreacted and made it something it isn't. They documented the backlash they received, and they used what they documented to pretend that division was caused by the migrants, when it was actually caused by them disrupting the migrants. I'm pretty pissed off. It just seems like a waste of my time, and a waste of everyone's time. And all it's been doing is enable fascists in the comment section to talk about how migrants need to be shot on sight, and how they're viruses, and how Jews are controlling everything, and that we should bomb Israel. I mean, what is this? When your activism results in, stopping people from getting somewhere because of a proposed threat that you have no proof about and no justification for, you are bigoted at that point.
Generation Identity have promised to continue to patrol the Alps, and it seems they've effectively forced the police and French border force to have a presence in the area as well. But for the most part, this action was seen by the world and media as a symbolic gesture, and that is a good thing. The ordinary people of this small remote town now know that someone out there cares.
The people of the town know that someone's looking out for them. Someone's got their back. We're on their side. Lauren did not feature anyone that actually lived in that town. She only featured herself and an Austrian guy who runs a identitarian movement, who's obviously going to have a bias. She didn't interview any of the public. She didn't do any surveys. I have no idea on the opinion of that town. The only thing I have to go off about the opinion of actual citizens there is the counter-protesters that came up towards the blockade to protest against it in favour for the migrants. It definitely wasn't anything invasive. It definitely wasn't roaming around. It definitely wasn't dividing anyone. Basically, Lauren is a storyteller. She's a storyteller, and she has a certain agenda about who she wants to be the good guys and the bad guys in the story, but anyone with any intellectual integrity knows that's not how the real world works. It isn't the good guys and the bad guys. We're all people, and we should all try and make sure we can all live good lives and work together. Surely that should be what's best. And migration is something that's happened throughout human history. You can't prevent migration. You can restrict it or allow access. You can have certain attitudes towards it, but it's always going to exist, and it's always going to change populations and cultures. The problem is with this thinking that this migration is going to completely destroy European civilization, and that's wrong. It's going to change European civilization, but European civilization has always changed, and it always will change, and there's nothing that any of these activists can do about that. So what's best is making sure that it changes in a way that's best for everyone, on a political level, on a social level, on an economic level, etc. But this rhetoric, all it does is enable hatred and division, which is ironically something they pretend to be against, but they're not really. Because anyone that calls himself an identitarian, therefore someone else that puts their identity, which is code for their race, first, that makes them bigoted. That makes them operate on the grounds of racial hatred, religious hatred, xenophobia, anti-immigrant rhetoric, with no real justification. It's easy to look at Lauren Southern and think, this makes sense. But what she's really doing is she's appealing to a conventional narrative structure that makes sense in our head, because we're so used to that kind of narrative structure about good guys and bad guys that it makes sense to us in our heads because it's simple, and therefore sometimes it works as a valid explanation to some people about why they're not satisfied with their lives. But that doesn't mean it's true. It means it's simply a pseudo explanation with no real grounds. Anyway, that's all from me. Hope you guys enjoyed. And just be on the lookout for people who, they're not white supremacists, but you can see what the agenda is here. And if you take it to its logical conclusion, it's not going to be a good thing. Well, it will be a good thing for white racists, and that's about it. So, anyway, catch you later.